It's Darswell Rogers here again, and this is video number 4 on the topic of higher profits through improved employee performance. We've covered communication as a very key and critical question in terms of achieving higher profits. We've talked about training as a core piece that is frequently missed by companies as it relates to improving what employees can reasonably be expected to do. And we linked the notion around the communication, a large chunk of that being the why you're in business, with really quality training to position your staff to know what business they're in, why they're in that business, how that business is going to be delivered, and then to make sure that they fully and completely understand what role that they are to play inside the company. The next step in terms of achieving that is to have clear management processes. And I want to cover with you right now the key components of clear management processes. If you want any organization to perform at a high level, the approach to controlling that team, that organization, is critical. And so what I have done here is articulated what I consider to be some of the clear management processes that are needed for high performance. And so let me cover these very quickly. Number 1 on this list is consistency. You have to be consistent. There is no situation that you can ever identify where management has had very uneven approach to how it interfaces with its team and achieve great success. The consistency of what it is that you do as a manager means, among other things, that what it is that you say needs to match what your actions are. It has to mean that if you have given people specific tasks to do, they know those are their tasks, and you're not going to come along tomorrow after having trained them on those particular tasks and turn around and arbitrarily say, I need you to do something different, unless you are permanently shifting or changing around what they're doing, or there's some unusual occurrence that's take place. Otherwise, it's going to be consistent. The other component that's going to be consistent here is how you're going to go about the oversight of all the things that are going to take place in your company. So know right away that what you say needs to match what you do, and what you ask your people to do has to remain fairly stable over periods of time if you expect them to get into a groove and perform at a higher level. Limited surprises. Now, when you're in business, there are always things that come about that you can't anticipate. Your goal should be to incorporate those surprises into someone's job description, whereby they manage the surprises instead of having everyone's responsibilities jumbled, become disjointed, or really taken off track because of something that comes along. To say it differently, you need to manage for the unexpected. You need to offer up a solution to when things happen that you can't anticipate, such that people know what to do with them. Are they mission critical surprises? Are they non-mission critical surprises? Do you designate someone to decide what the right solution should be relative to those? Whatever scenario you come up with, whatever scenario you paint, you need to manage to it through determining how you're not going to disrupt everyone and what everyone's doing based on surprises. Positive encouragement. And we're going to talk about this later on in this conversation, but for the purposes of this, understand that people need to be reaffirmed when they do something good. I call it catching people doing something right. You know, from childhood, the way a lot of parenting works is when you do a good job, it's just expected. When you do something wrong is when you hear about it. If you want an organization to perform at a higher level, they need to feel real good when they're doing a good job, and that needs to be affirmed. So you can find an opportunity to catch somebody doing something right virtually any time in your organization. Of course, you need additional approaches to positive encouragement. We'll talk about those a little bit more, but the concept of positive encouragement is very important. Clear rules. Clear rules can be as simple as, this is the time that we start, this is the time that the day ends, this is the dress code that we're required to have, this is when people take their lunch break. Whatever the requirements are to allow you to perform at a high level, you need to make sure that people understand what those rules are, and then you need to enforce them as management. You need to enforce those rules. Clear roles. Roles should be relatively self-evident. Who's a manager? Who's a supervisor? Who's responsible for doing what job? If you have learned anything in terms of the training that we talked about before, which is that you need to make sure that people know what it is that they're supposed to do. It needs to be something that they have a very clear sense of, not only that it's their responsibility, but that they have been trained on that responsibility, that it has been incorporated into their goals, and that they are being reviewed on it. when you've achieved that level of consistency in terms of your approach, roles will be clear. Just be sure that as a manager that you don't come in and disrupt that which you put in place because of for whatever reason. It's oftentimes hard to understand, but individuals have idiosyncrasies, and that sometimes causes them to disrupt an organization that they in effect wish to have perform very consistently. And then accountability. And this really should be underlined, it should be highlighted, it should be in red, it should be huge, it should be broad, it should be wide. If you don't hold people accountable, including yourself for the things that you said you want to have done, then there is zero chance that you can have a high performing organization. There's zero chance that you can have great morale. You've just really limited the ability if you allow people to operate inside your organization with outside the realms of being accountable for their actions. And I have to emphasize that includes you. You cannot say to your staff you're going to do certain things, not do it, and then expect them to do certain things. It goes back to one of my favorite definitions of insanity, which is that you continue to do the same thing, but you expect a different result. You have to change the outcomes by holding people accountable if you want to have a different sort of performance or outcomes in your business. And so I want to talk then about what I call the realities of management. And here's the first one, and this is a really difficult and tough one for a lot of managers. You have to own your shortcomings. You're not perfect, and there's no expectation that you're going to be perfect. No one can be perfect. The key is that you own your shortcomings. Your staff should be just as aware of your shortcomings, because by the way, they know what your shortcomings are. They may not admit it to your face, but they know what it is that you don't do well. And so you need to own your shortcomings, and you need the key to being a good manager is not being able to do anything. A key to being a good manager is recognizing your limitations, and then you fill in the gaps in competency around what you don't do well. Then you have a well-functioning organization. And I just want to emphasize that filling in this gap can translate into situations where, under certain circumstances, you are reporting to someone on your staff. I had situations, we had a project manager for a number of things that we did, and she would be very clear with me in terms of this is what you were assigned to do. She reminded me of my assignment just like anyone else. My administrative assistant was responsible for keeping me on schedule. She was responsible for making sure I was in the right place at the right time. And to put it quite candidly, when she knew I needed to deliver on something, she didn't mix her words in letting me know that's where I needed to be. Because as a manager, I recognized my shortcoming around making sure I stayed on point on occasion, and so therefore I hired good quality people that I knew could help me to do that. Attitude. This question of attitude flows to you as well as everyone else. It's the one thing that every person who works for you can choose on their way to work. You might not can choose how competent you are, but you can certainly choose whether or not you're going to come in with a good attitude. You might not be able to determine what sort of customer experience or snafus or problems or other issues that can come up, but the attitude that you bring to work is something that you need to demonstrate for your people, and it's something that you need to insist on with them. So a real reality around management is that you need to control your attitude, and you need to insist and embed in your people the notion that this is a critical element. Delegate and empower. A lot of managers are doers. They came into a management position from a job that either, if it's their own business, they probably had a competency in that area, or they were promoted from being a doer, and a doer is a person who actually delivered whatever the product or service was to the customer, and now you're in the role of making sure that this broader organization works. 75% of what's involved in successfully running the business is the management of the business. Only 25% deals with the actual delivery of the product to the customer. So it's sales management, it's service management, it's technology management, it's financial management, the management elements. And if you cannot be the doer and the manager at the same time, you need to identify the people inside your organization, you need to delegate responsibilities to them, and then you need to actually allow them to do that job without you breathing down their neck, because there's 1,000 other things that you need to do. It's really, really important that you understand the empowerment and the delegation dynamic, and this goes a long way toward having high-performing employees, because employees love the opportunity that they have been given responsibility and that you have some confidence in them. This is where growth takes place in your organization. So you need to begin to look at those jobs that you currently are doing that can be delegated to someone else. Think in terms of you having the value of your hands in the job. I say, I've got $300 or $400 or $500 hands, $1,000 hands. Am I doing $10, $15, $20 work? That's a key and simple way that you can make the decision as to what it is you need to delegate. by the way, high value jobs that you don't have great competency in should also be delegated. Okay. Putting the right person in the right job. Every single organization has people that are not in the right job. They're not in the right job because they have been loyal and you leave them in a position that they shouldn't be in. They're not in the right job because they've never actually been trained on how to do it, and maybe their competency is actually in a different position. Whatever the scenario is, you need to ask about every single employee that you have, is this inside their competency? If it's not, can we train them in that competency? If the answer is no, then you need to move them into a position, or in effect have to consider moving them out of the organization completely. The realities of management says that you need to really come to grips with these questions. They are simple in concept, but the rubber hits the road when you take very hard, sober assessments of exactly where you stand here. The last piece that I really want to talk about as it relates to this whole question of effective management comes down to the question of your employees. And I want to quickly talk about the 3 P's of employee satisfaction. They are pay, praise, and promotion. And I'm going to tell you that most managers I run into fail to do one of these 3. So many managers will say to me, I just pay my people. I just pay them. Well, people are whole people. They're not partial people. And the reality is that you need to treat them as something other than a gun for hire. Others praise you to death but won't pay you. And others give you a ton of responsibility, never say thank you, and work your fingers to the bone, never say thank you, and also don't pay you. Here's the reality. If you want to have a high-performing organization, you need to find the right balance. And you need to also understand that all of your employees have different needs. My top salesperson, back when I ran an insurance brokerage operation, his biggest issue was that he wanted to be sure that he was brought before everyone and everyone knew that he was the top performer. It was, in a lot of ways, more important to him than being compensated that people knew that he was the top salesperson. I had another salesperson who was a younger person who was more interested in responsibility, incredibly impatient around promotion, having the opportunity to manage. So you need to, first off, understand that there's a balance here, but more importantly, that balance falls differently based on the person. I had an admin that was an amazing woman in terms of getting things done. You gave her an assignment, she went to her computer, and she'd knock out anything. But she absolutely, positively would be mortified if you brought her to the front of a room to give her recognition. And so that's not how she wanted to be recognized. She didn't, the written acknowledgement, lovely. Say her name some way, that's fantastic. Pay her, yes, that's what she was looking for. But she felt incredibly embarrassed if she had to be brought to the front of the room. So understand that these 3 things tie closely into having a high-performing organization. You have to get this mix right. You have to be real sure that you understand the psychological dynamics that play out as it relates to people in these 3 questions. If you're not thinking about all 3 of these, pay, praise, and promotion, then you're truly missing the boat. I'll just mention here quickly that the whole question around employee motivation can go well beyond this, but you need to get these core elements down if you have any chance of being able to take your organization to the next level. So listen, we've got one more video that's coming in this particular series related to higher profits for improved employee performance, and it's on the commitment that you need to have to continuous improvement. So go to video number 5. If you haven't seen the prior videos, there's the introductory video, there's the one on communications, there's the one on training, and then there's the one on, this is the one on management processes. So I hope that you take the opportunity to listen to those videos as well. Also, please go to the rmcstrategies.com website. If you have not signed up for us to be able to send you information on a regular basis, you need to do that. There's also additional videos there that you need to check out. So we look forward to seeing you in video number 5.